Hello everyone, and welcome to my presentation about color theory and Lego. Before I start my presentation, there's a few things I wanted to go over. First of all, I'll be taking a few breaks during my presentation to answer questions. So if you put any questions you have in the chat, then during my breaks, Amanda will ask me those questions in the chat and I'll answer them. Another thing I wanted to go over is that a lot of feelings about color are subjective, and some people might not agree with what other people think look good based on color. However, I believe this advice that I'm going to give in my presentation will help everyone when deciding what colors to use in your own Lego projects. Finally, I want to note that I will not be using the official Lego color names in this presentation. I'll just be calling the colors as I see them. So pedantics, be warned. So last weekend when I was putting this presentation together, I took a break to call my granny in England to see how she was doing. When I told her I was giving a presentation about color and Lego, she said, "Oh, but there are only 7 colors, aren't there?" Well, in my granny's day, yes, there were. Here you can see some of the original colors that Lego had when getting started in the 50s and 60s. There are only 7 of them: white, gray, black, red, yellow, green, and blue. However, since then, there has been a veritable explosion of color, with more colors than I could hope to make up names for on the spot, ranging from new shades of existing colors to sparkly transparent colors and glow-in-the-dark colors. Now that we know that we're dealing with so many colors, let's go over some ways we can differentiate them. First, there are hues. A basic color wheel consists of 6 colors with 6 different hues: red, orange, yellow, green, and purple. We will go over some of the properties of the different hues later, but for now it is enough to know that hue is basically a fancy word for the base color. Another way you can differentiate colors is by their shade. Here we can see 2 different hues, blue and the grayscale, but there are more than 2 different colors. If this were paint, we could achieve these different hues by mixing one shade with either white or black to get different shades, to make the color either darker or lighter. Finally, a way to differentiate colors is saturation. A color's saturation is a way to describe how bright and intense the color is, how much of the hue is in there. The colors on the left are very saturated. They are intense and pop to the eye. The colors on the right are desaturated. They are not as intense and can be a bit dull in comparison to saturated colors. Note that the shade of the color does not dictate its saturation. This yellowish color is a lighter color and not very saturated, while this olive green is a darker color, but also not very saturated. Let's go back to the color wheel. As I said before, there are 6 basic hues. Now, in the world of paint, there are hues known as primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. By mixing these hues together, you can get all of the other hues, such as mixing red and yellow to get orange. Additionally, the colors at the top of the wheel are considered warm colors due to their association with fire. Those colors at the bottom of the color wheel are considered cool colors due to their association with ice. Looking at them, you can even see their respective temperatures. These groups of colors have a tendency to work well together without clashing. Another color relationship to note is that of complementary colors. These are colors at opposite sides of the color wheel, such as blue and orange, red and green, and yellow and purple. Again, if Legos were paint, mixing any 2 complementary colors together makes brown. When placed next to each other, these colors can clash and are jarring to the eye. So unless you are going for that jarring effect, it is generally best to avoid using complementary colors in a build. This can be easy since purple and orange are hard to find. but watch out for that red and green. There's plenty of it. Finally, there are some colors that are considered neutral. Brown, tan, black, white, and gray are generally placed outside of the color wheel. Because of their neutrality, they can often be used with other colors without changing the warmth or coolness of the design, and without clashing as complementary colors would. Let's take a pause here before I move on to explaining how to make color schemes out of these colors. What questions do you have about colors?
Lizzie, do you have a preferred pair of colors that you like to use on that color wheel?
I really like blue and green colors. Those are, looking around at everything I have, those are definitely the most common colors I've used. Though that's also because green is grass and I like doing outdoor scenes a lot. All right, so there are a few basic ways of creating color schemes. The first and easiest is to pick a series of colors of about 3 adjacent colors. For example, picking yellow, green, and blue. Let's take an example. Let's adjust my camera. So this model of an outdoor scene exemplifies that color scheme. The overall model is different shades of green, but with blue highlights in the river and with yellow highlights in the flowers, path, and rubber duck. These colors work well together due to their adjacency on the color wheel. Another example of this method of making color schemes is my tower. Now, my tower is a bit tall, so let's just look at the top half for now. The colors include tan, dark tan, transparent orange, and gold. They are all warm or neutral colors and so work harmoniously together. Since the tower is overwhelmingly neutral with its shades of tan, the gold and orange parts at the top really stand out. Now let's take a quick look at the bottom of the tower. Here we'll find cooler colors like green and blue to contrast the warmth of the top of the tower. Notice that I used a desaturated shade of green for the seaweed so as not to make it pop against the neutral colors of the tower. Another way of creating color schemes based off the color wheel is to pick 2 colors that are adjacent or close in the color wheel and 1 color that is far away. One example of that is my bookstore, which I must pick up off the floor. This bookstore here is mostly made out of brown and tan, again, neutral colors, but the green awning really stands out against them. I also brought this model together by using green in the colors of the figures outside and the book on the store sign. I wanted to use these shades of green to bring contrast from the rest of the building to prevent this from being boring, since most of the building is neutral colors. A final way to create a color scheme is to borrow it from an existing object. Let's look at this minifigure of an elven mage. Her 2 dominant colors are orange and magenta. Using these colors as a guide, I constructed a tree for her to live in. You can see the magenta reflected in the leaves of the trees and the orange in the dragon and deep orange of the tree trunk. I choose to use an intense lime green color as a highlight, as a callback to that previous method of a color scheme, picking two related colors and then picking one that is far away for contrast. Since all the other colors in this build are very saturated bright colors, I picked a lime green as opposed to a different darker shade of green in order to match that saturation. To recap, there are 3 methods for making a color scheme. 1, picking 3 adjacent colors. 2, picking mostly adjacent colors and 1 contrasting color. And 3, use an existing object as a guide. Before I move on to an activity, what questions do you have about color schemes? All right. So, for those of you who were in the room this morning, this is the house I built for our Halloween slideshow. You can see some of the guidelines I went over earlier reflected here in this build. The leaves of the tree are made up of warm colors that are adjacent in the color wheel, and all the colors in the tree are saturated, so the tree really pops. By contrast, the house is made up of cool or neutral colors, and these colors are more desaturated. This was to bring contrast between the tree and the house, and so that they do not blend together in our minds when looking at it. I thought it would be fun to build a smaller version of this tree and house on the spot, picking different colors to see how they look together. We will have many places to decide what color to use. The color of the base plate, the color of the walls, the color of the bricks on the side of the walls, the door, the windows, the roof, and finally the leaves of the trees. So I'll get those colors out. And the tree just fell over and exploded, because that's what trees do in real life. So the first thing we have to decide is the base plate. There's a white base plate here, even though the camera cannot see it, but we've also got green, tan, blue, and dark gray. Does anyone have an opinion on what color you think we should use? All right, we've got 1 vote for dark gray and 1 vote for blue. I like blue. We're going to build a house in the middle of the ocean. This is great. There are no problems with building houses in oceans that I can think of. So the next thing we'll want to choose is the color for the walls. I've got 6 colors here. We've got tan, a green shade, light gray, white, light blue, and dark blue. All right, we've got, you can't choose 2. Okay, we have a vote for every single color. Good job, team. We have 2 votes for tan, so we'll be doing tan. Next up are the corner bricks, where we have dark gray, light gray, tan, dark tan, orange, and dark red. So many dark red votes. It's unanimous. We finally did it. And then we've got these variety of doors and styles. There is jail, blue, red, gray, white, and green. Okay, we have 2 votes for the green door. So many windows. I guess just attempt to describe your favorite window. All right, we got a vote for the blue window, a vote for these shiny white windows, vote for the brown and green window. I'm going to agree with the person who said with the green and tan window, since these are colors we've already chosen, so it will work together with what we've got already. All right, for our roof, we have green, brown, tan, black, and red. All right, we've got votes for brown, black, and green. Who wants to break the tie? Oh, I see we got brown twice, then brown it is. All right, finally, we've got the tree leaves where we have orange, light blue, dark blue, 3 shades of green, and white. All right, we have 2 votes for orange. We have 3 votes for orange. Orange it is. All right, so here are our selections together. I see that we have gotten an overall color scheme involving browns, greens, and tans. So I will construct this, and while I'm doing that, I will point the camera at another model of mine that you may enjoy. So the model you can see in front of you is actually based off of a print by the Japanese printmaker Hakusai. This was one of his 36 views of Mount Fuji. And so that's Mount Fuji in the background. And then this one is called The Wind. And as you can see, the wind is picking up pieces of paper and blowing them away. One thing I did in this model that is interesting is the use of forced perspective. So in the front, you can see the minifigures are all close, but then in the back, I used micro minifigures to make them look like they're in the distance, even though they're really just a few inches from those minifigures in the front. And I have just received a text. This just in, it is in fact Hakusai's birthday today. Happy birthday, Hakusai. I don't know how old he is. Okay. If anyone has any questions to ask me, let me know. Still working on the house. Tree is done.
Lizzie, we have a comment for you on your views of Mount Fuji model.
Okay.
The comment is that the poster likes how the gray and blue characters bring attention to the white character in the front middle, since the white character blends in with the paper flying through the air. Oh, the red and blue ones, not the white one. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, I chose the, in the real painting, well, it's a print. In the real print, they're all blue, but I chose to use different colors in my design. One, because they're the different Ninjago color characters, and two, because Lego is just so much colorful. All right, our house has been built. Step aside, Mount Fuji. We've got something far better to show. Here is our house in all of its glory. One thing I failed to do was build a proper width roof. That's totally on me, but let's see how we did. So we can definitely get the contrast between the blue of this blue grass, I guess, with the orange tree leaves. That definitely suggests some sort of fantasy world that this cottage is in. The green and red also contrast with each other, but that's good too. Let's see, David Turner said this house is flooded. Appropriate for Madison, flooding occasionally. And then we've definitely got the brown and brown of the roof and brown of the window working together to really bring this build together of not using completely different colors for the entire house, but also tying together different elements. So the window with the door, they're both things that open, they're both green. So that's a neat house we built there. Are people interested in building another house? Or do we want to just look at more Lego models?
What would it look like, Lizzie, if we changed out the base plate for a different color?
All right, where did I put those? Here they are. So let's look at the tan base plate. So just changing the tan base plate instantly gives it a entirely different feel. So whereas the blue kind of gave either a fantasy world or flooded look, now with the tan, that instantly brings to mind sort of desert dryness or dustiness that brings the tree to make you think, oh, the tree is dead and dying like the ground, so maybe there's been a drought here. The more dull colors of the house also sort of blend in with the neutralness of the tan base plate. However, that makes the green stand out even more. Whoever lives here wants to bring some brightness to their life, which is why they painted their door and windows a bright green color. One thing to note though, I would generally avoid putting a tan house on top of a tan base plate. Since they're the same color, it can be hard to tell where one ends and one begins.
We have a request to put the house on a green base plate.
Ah, that is a request I can fulfill. I have a request for the house to stop falling apart. But again, that's all on me. If this were real life, I would have built other walls to the house besides just the front wall, but since this is just for demonstration purposes and I wanted to be able to build it quickly, I went with a flimsier one-wall house design. Oh, and I left some of the house behind on the other base plate. So in my next presentation on sturdiness, I will not be building this house. Yep, once again, just changing out one of the colors for the base plate, especially since the base plate makes up such a large majority of this build really changes the character. Here now the base plate is resonating with the door and window since they're the same color, and once again causes the brightness of the tree to stand out even more. Right. Does anyone else have any questions about colors or want to see anything that I showed again or see something different?
What were the color options for the tree again?
Oh, the tree had the most color options. There were 3 shades of green, 2 shades of blue, white, light orange, which is on the tree, and dark orange here. Let's put in a blue tree. I got these blue leaf pieces. I want to use them. One thing that I think would be cool to make in the future would be an underwater house where everything would be blue. And then I could use these blue tree leaves.
You're getting several yes votes for an underwater house.
All right. Well, we'll see if I have time to build a new house in a moment. Working on the tree first. The leaves are falling off my tree. It thinks it's fall.
Can't imagine why it might think that.
I don't know where it's getting that idea. So here with this dark blue tree, because these dark colors are less saturated, they kind of blend in with the background and don't contrast as much from the house. So whereas with earlier those bright orange leaves were distracting us from the house by looking at the tree, now the house is the center of attention in this build. Let me bring back my blue. All right. Underwater house. So. Definitely want different shades of blue for that. In the corner, I guess, dark gray. I really like this method of building a house where you put these masonry bricks in the corner. I really feel it brings out the house a bit more than some other versions would. We're going to put a low window in on this one. Most windows are in fact 3 bricks high. So I'm seeing though that it's 2:30. Someone else is set to go on now, right?
Yeah, I believe David is next.
David here?
Yeah, David's here.
All right. Nearly done with my house. Sorry, I'm cutting into your time, David. I don't know where all the roofs went. They were right here. All right, underwater house. We can see here that there are different shades of blue, but since they're all not the same blue, you can differentiate the different parts. It's a bit harder on the camera than in my screen. And then using the sort of darker highlights helps bring out the blueness. All right, that's the end of my presentation. I'll let David take it away on his. I hope everyone enjoyed learning about colors.